You were watching the Illusionist Interrogations with the travesty, starring Todd Lamanske. He's been on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. He's been performing for over 30 years. Close up, stand up, all the way to corporate. He's performed at the Magic Castle, the presidential inaugural ball for President George W. Bush. Here he is, Todd Lamanske.
Hola.
How are you doing through this pandemic?
I'm surviving. Hanging in there. Not working a whole lot, but that's all right.
So, have you done any Zoom shows? Or are you doing anything online?
I have not done a Zoom show. I've done some Zoom classes, just teaching some simple tricks. I haven't done a Zoom show. I don't have a real good excuse or reason. I don't really want to do one. It's not. I mean, I have to create a whole new show to do it.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. I've got some equipment where I could do it. I haven't yet. So.
All right. I've been hearing a lot of mixed reviews about the idea of going live through a camera, but
yeah,
to each their own.
It definitely opens up. Because let's face it, you could do close-up magic on Zoom. So
Yeah.
you could do, and I'm more of a close-up guy than I am a stand-up guy. I do both, but you do a crazy cool close-up stuff that a ton of people would be able to see. So there's some advantages to it, but I just haven't done it.
So I got a ton of questions for you, but I think we should start at the start.
Ooh, sorry. I don't have time. I'll make some time. Some time.
What got you into magic? And when you started, who'd you look up to?
Okay. I started with magic kits when I was young. I want to say maybe 12. When I was 13.
Do you remember the magic kit?
No, Adams. It was an Adams kit. I don't have it anymore. Like, right. I mean, I've got, I'm the baby of 8, so it probably got beat to crud years ago. So magic kits. Then when I was 13, I broke both of my arms at the same time. And just so you know how that happened, I fell. I was lifting weights and I fell. So I had 95 pounds over my head standing up, and I fell. Like, my knees buckled, and when I fell, I hit the ground.
Wow. And
the bar snapped both of my arms. In fact, when it happened, the bar would have been like a good 6 to 8 inches above my chest. It crunched my arms so bad that the bar bruised my chest. So it was pretty nasty. Anyway, while I was in the hospital with my broken arms, one of my mom's friends bought me 7 books on magic, and that's when I started.
Did you say 7?
7 books, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Because when you see a kid with broken arms, you think they should do close-up magic.
Well,
and read 7 books.
I think her thought process was that maybe, reading these books might get me in. Once I get the casts off, I'll start, with some dexterity stuff. And I don't know what her thought process was, but she knew I liked magic, and maybe this was just her way of giving me some kind of gift. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was. Yeah, it was a big thing. Was there a second part to that question of
who'd you look up to when you got started?
Yeah. I mean, back then it was probably like Doug Henning.
Nice. With
his TV specials. And then a little bit later on, Copperfield. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys.
I think everyone should look up to those names.
And honestly, back then, maybe a little later on, not right away, but like Harry Anderson was an early influence. Just love the guy. I've always loved the comedy magicians. It's always been who I've drawn to, yeah.
All right. When was your first official show?
It's interesting because I know plenty of guys that say, I did a show when I was 5. I don't remember. Here's what I can tell you. I did magic casually. When I turned 18, now keep in mind, I'm not the same guy that I was back then, but at 18, I live in Missouri, and I'm very close to the Kansas side. And back then, you could drive over to Kansas to drink beer when you were 18. So we would drive over to Kansas and go to these bars. And
of course.
I met a guy there. I know the guy's name was John. I never once I started going to magic clubs and stuff, I never saw him there. I don't know who the guy was, but he showed me how to vanish a lit cigarette, how to vanish a silk handkerchief. He showed me a little like a paddle move thing with a little color stick, and he showed me scotch and soda, maybe color Monty. Like, he showed me a few tricks, and I was like, oh, these are great. And so I started practicing those and getting real good and doing magic just casually. Like, I started going back to doing magic at the bar.
And you never saw that guy again?
No, I never did. It's the craziest thing. Like, I wish I knew who he was so I could, thank him, because honestly, it was big.
You should try Facebook searching.
Well, I don't know his last name.
Yeah.
John is all I know.
Yeah, I guess John would. There's a lot of Johns.
There's probably a dozen Johns in the world. So
yeah, at least maybe 13.
So, anyway, but that's how I got started. But then when I was 21, I was selling office supplies, and I would go out and I'd make calls on companies, and one of my angles was that I would go in and I would casually mention that. I wouldn't just say, hey, I'm a magician, you want to see a trick? I would casually mention, oh, I did a certain magic show over the weekend, and then get them to say, oh, really? You do magic? And they're like, sure, you want to see a trick? And so it got to be where some of my clients, I would just do like every week or every 2 weeks, however often I would see them, I would pop in and I would always do a magic trick for them. So it kind of set me apart from my competition. Okay. But it led to company Christmas parties. And so then I started just doing those. Back to your question, I don't know how to answer when my first show was, because I don't remember. Like, I know before I even started selling office supplies and started doing the company Christmas parties, I know I did like small gatherings, but I want to say maybe 18 years old to 19, maybe even when I first did my first show.
All right. What would you consider like your first like big breakthrough of a show? Like when you knew, hey, this is money. This is it.
I would guess maybe. I mean, I don't ever feel like there was a point where I was like, I have made it. So as far as when I like a big breakthrough show would have been probably those company Christmas parties, when I was starting to book a lot of those. I was like, all right, I can make some money doing this. So yeah. And back then I still had obviously I still had a regular job and was doing the magic on the side.
Yeah. So are you full-time magic now?
Yes, I'm broke.
All right.
Yeah. Honestly, like, it's been great. Like, when I decided to leave my day job, that's what's tricky when you decide to do this full time. If you have a day job and you're doing magic on the side, and you decide, I've got to leave my day job. When I did that, it's scary.
I'm sure.
Although there's really not much to be scared of if you're good and you're not an idiot. Like, you can make a go of it. But
I mean, other than a pandemic, that could...
Exactly. But back when I made this change, I knew that I was making this big chunk of money from my day job, and I was making this big chunk of money from magic. The problem is, once I leave that day job, that big chunk of money goes away. So now my magic chunk needs to double, automatic. And within the first year, I was there. So I was very blessed, and everything was great until, this year, 2020 pandemic has ruined everything for all entertainers. So yeah, it's been a little rough. But
now,
yeah.
Since the pandemic started, have you learned any skills because of your probably extra free time?
Man, I'm really good at mowing my grass and my mother-in-law's grass. And I mean, I don't know if that's a skill, but I'm pretty good at it, dude. Pretty good.
I mean, it's something to do.
Yeah, no, I have no any skills. Not really. I've been editing video and working on some products magic products for magicians, so I've released.
We will be talking about those later.
Okay,
I'm sure.
Cool. Yeah.
So in the intro, we mentioned about you did the presidential inaugural ball with George W. Bush there.
Yeah, I'm not allowed
How
to talk
did
about
that
it.
happen?
I can't talk about that.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll tell you how it happened. David Sandy, a magician here in Kansas City. Some of you listening may know who that is. Just a super great guy. He's smart and sharp and a good magician as well. He and Michael Amar. I think Amar contacted David Sandy. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Amar contacted Sandy and asked him to kind of put it together. But the two of them put it together, and they put together a group of 21 magicians that got to go, and we just flew in, did the show, did the magic that night, and flew out the next day. And it was roaming magic at the ball, so it was just roaming, and it was a blast. It was kind of a whirlwind, but I mean, I should have brought up like a picture because I'll forget. But
we can add something in later if you need to.
We got to do this with Amar, Daryl, and Daryl's wife Allison, Michael Finney, Giovanni Rivera, Dan Garrett, Darwin Ortiz. I'm going to forget big names. Paul Gertner. Oh, goodness. David Sandy, obviously,
Yeah.
Myself. Tom Burgoon is another one who went. I'm forgetting a bunch of big names, but it's like this crazy lineup that when I look back and think about that, it's kind of surreal. It's like, wow, I did this gig for the president with all these guys, and almost for me, the president part of it takes a back seat to like, oh my gosh, look at all these great guys that I performed with. So yeah, it was a memorable and very cool, and
For
also
sure.
looks good on the resume.
Oh,
So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about the other gig you did that was it was pretty big. Penn and Teller. Fool us.
Penn and Teller.
I mean, how did that happen? I mean, did you send the video in? Did they contact you?
Yeah. They had contacted a friend of mine in Omaha, Joe Cole, and Joe didn't really want to do it. He didn't feel like he had anything, like he just didn't want to do it. So he gave them my name. So I got an email from one of the talent organizer guys at the show and asked me if I wanted to be on it. So I said, yeah, let me, he said, put together, a video. So I put together a video of 3 tricks and submitted them, and they came back to me and said, okay, we want you to do this trick on the show. And it was my open prediction trick called Prophecy Deck. And so, yeah, they said, we want you to do this trick. And so I said, all right, let's do it. And so they sent me all the information, and they booked my flight and hotel at the Rio. So and just set it up. And so you get paid. They pay you to be there, and then they also, when you get there, they give you a cash allowance, kind of a per diem, and then they give you some food vouchers, and so it was pretty great. It was pretty great.
Now, the effect that you performed, is that something you're selling?
It is. Yeah, it is. In fact, when they told me that's the trick they wanted me to do, of the 3 that I sent them, there was one for sure that I thought would have been better, that it would have just all the way around would have been better. But I don't care. I'm going to get a great 6-minute video.
Oh yeah,
it's all good. So when they picked that one, I thought this is probably not going to fool them, but I don't really care. But the good thing, like you said, do I sell it? I do, and that was nice because right after the show aired, sales were went through the roof, so that was good. That was a good thing.
Now, where can we find this?
Yeah, I have several products, and that's one of the things I've been working on is some more products. ToddsTrickStore.com, and that's Todd's.
Here, I'll put it up on the page right here.
Okay. toddstrickstore.com, and I've got products out there, and I've got more in the works that will be added. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, when you got to Penn and Teller's show, I mean, as I understood it, they hide you in the basement and then wait till your cue? I mean, what's your...
Yeah. So the whole process took like 4 days.
Wow.
5 days kind of, but 4 days. And it's because you're shooting different segments. There's for that opening part when you watch the show, and there's that package at the beginning before I come out on stage. So like we sat in a little room and I had an interview there, and then there was separate, like, because they talked about my broken arms, and they actually wrapped my arms in these bandages and all that takes a while. And then they wanted me to go to this other bar and do some magic. So all those things were shot at different times. So it just took 4 days. And then also there's a time when you go down and you meet with the late great Johnny Thompson and Mike Close. Actually, Mike Close was not in my first little session with the consultant guys, and so then you meet with them, and there's that time. So like I said, it takes several days, but yes. So on the day of the shoot, and this is something a lot of people probably wouldn't realize, is that I was with 4 other guys, but none of those guys were on my episode of the show. They're just shooting them all, and then the editors decide, okay, probably based on time, and also maybe based on, well, we don't want this many card tricks on an episode. Like, I don't know how they split it up, but ultimately, all the guys that I was with were not on the same episode that I was on when it aired. But yeah, they throw everybody in the basement, and I was the first one. Thankfully, I was the first one to get to go up. But you go upstairs, and then you're like in a little holding room, kind of off the stage, and I was nervous. And here's what's funny is, dude, I don't get nervous. I've been doing this a long time, and that's not bragging. That is just a reality that it is rare for me to get nervous. Every now and then in my stand-up show, if I have added something new, I might be a little nervous about that, but not a ton. I was flat out crazy nervous for this show. In fact, probably a week before the show, I was getting nervous, and then like when the day of traveling, and just each day. But the day of the shoot, I was a wreck, just because you're just thinking of all these things. It's like, I got to make sure of this, I got to make sure of this, and it's TV, and it's Penn and Teller, and everything is just like And so I was crazy nervous. So I went up into this holding room. Well, I didn't realize it, but the trick that they do, every episode, Penn and Teller does a trick at the end of the show. That trick that they do, they shoot that first. They shoot that before. So while I was sitting there waiting to go on, Penn and Teller were out there shooting, performing a trick, and they were shooting that. So
could you hear them there, like in your holding cell?
I couldn't hear them. No. I couldn't hear them. But my wife was in the audience, and she told me that. So that's how I know that. And so I waited for like over an hour just by myself in this holding room, and it was just like, it was torture. Like, there's nothing worse than thinking I'm getting ready to perform and I'm ready to do it, and then just sitting and waiting. And so completely crazy nervous. So I walk out on stage, and the crazy thing was, of all the things I'd thought about, the last thing I had thought about is the fact that Allison Hannigan is going to be there. Just I didn't think about the fact that, oh crap, here's this celebrity. And that was the first thing that went through my mind. I was like, I walked out, and I'm like smiling and waving, and I look over, and there's Allison, and in my mind I'm going, oh crap, that's Allison Hannigan right there.
And to a non-magician, that's probably the biggest thing to some people. I mean,
yeah, totally, because she's a celebrity. But the funny thing is, I mentioned I was crazy nervous. As soon as I walked out on stage, it was gone. It's real. That's the real magic, for real. It's just this crazy thing. Once you start doing your thing, you're just doing your thing. Yeah. And I've talked about this with other magicians, about working sick, and how I could be like really, really not feeling well, and then I go do a show because you have to. You're getting paid. They're expecting you. And then that sickness goes away. You do your show, and you're on stage, and it just goes away.
I
And then it comes back after your show.
Oh, yeah.
But not immediately. It's this weird adrenaline thing. I don't know what it is, but if you could bottle it, you could sell it and be a millionaire.
For sure. I had the same thing happen to me when I went on Masters of Illusion with Ed. I was sick that day. I mean, it was. I came in there with just not ready, and then go time. You're not sick anymore.
Yeah,
It's great.
Yeah, it really is. It's first time it happened to me. I was like, what just happened? That is crazy. So yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, which do you think you were more nervous for? I mean, being in front of the President of the United States or Penn and Teller?
Well, first of all, I didn't perform for Bush. He was there. I was just part of the entertainment. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, I think that to be at this inaugural ball, it was like $2,500 a plate just to be there. So this was a bunch of, influential people. So I didn't perform for Bush. So I wasn't nervous at all. It was just like another gig to me. It was just another gig. But I mean, I did get to do magic for Wayne Newton and Bo Derek, and that was kind of cool. But again, even at that, I'm not nervous for that. Like celebrities generally, I don't care. I mean, I'm doing what I do. It's what I do. So
for me, it takes other magicians that like you almost there's more of like a challenge because they know what you know a little bit, and so
yeah,
that's a different ball game.
Just I think the stakes. It was like even though I didn't think that trick was going to fool them. Here's what's funny. I think most magicians think, like, oh, what would I do if I went on? I wonder what I would do if I went on Fool Us. And I was like that. Like, what would I do? And I hadn't really given a lot of thought. And then they contacted me and said, you want to be on the show? And I was still like, I don't know. All right, sure. I didn't care. But as soon as they said, we want you to come on and do this trick, everything changed for me. My whole mindset was like, man, I want to fool them now. Dang it. Like, I really wanted to fool them. And anyway, so definitely more nervous for Penn and Teller because I didn't really perform for Bush. So,
and I think we'll leave it the Penn and Teller note. If you all watching at home want to see if he fooled him or not, go watch the show. Just leave it there. Now, you said you looked up to Doug Henning and I already forgot the other name, but has any of that?
Copperfield. Did you forget Copperfield?
Oh, Copperfield. Yeah, you can't forget about Copperfield. That's ridiculous.
You've heard of him though, right?
Yeah,
like,
we've all heard. From childhood to now, is there anyone that like what would be your like Mount Rushmore? Who would be your like top 4 of all time magicians?
Oh man,
that's a tough one.
I mean, obviously you.
Oh yeah, sure.
I don't want to forget that. I mean, first of all, like, I know you're asking my opinion, but I also feel like I should say that, like, I'm not going to be the guy, like, my opinion is going to be way different than maybe somebody else. Like, as much as I love what David Blaine has done for the art, like, he wouldn't be on my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And I don't mean anything against Blaine because I like the guy. And what he did for close-up magic with his specials, I mean,
for sure,
amazing what he did. The brilliance, obviously, of his show was showing the audience reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the magic was fine, but just the way people were freaking out was just brilliant. So, look at Blaine, Copperfield. Let's face it, that guy. I mean, he was putting on a new TV show, a new TV special every year. I mean, that's hard to do. Every year, new.
Not even just putting a new special on. The level of what he did. I mean,
yes.
The Statue of Liberty.
Yes.
Like what?
Yes, every year, and again, no disrespect to David Blaine, but David Blaine, and I've seen other guys do it too, is that their big finale is some kind of an escape or a stunt of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
But Copperfield never did that. He did a big illusion,
and there was a story with everything.
Let's say again.
There was a story with everything too,
yes.
So it meant something.
And honestly, you want to talk about one of the greatest things he ever did on that show, his flying is still one of the most amazing illusions and so well done. Like, if you have never seen David Copperfield flying, you can probably find it easily on YouTube. It is absolutely amazing. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a stage illusion guy, so I don't know anything about how it's done. And I like that. There, you know, when it comes to close-up, it's hard for me to be fooled anymore. And with stage, I like it because I don't know a lot of that stuff. So yeah, but the flying, even if you know how it's done, which I don't, but even if you do, it doesn't matter. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful, beautiful illusion. It's just so well done. And for those who haven't seen it, he ends up picking up a gal. I want to say it was like maybe a famous person who was on the show. A gal picks her up and flies off with her. It's, if you haven't seen it, even if you have seen it, YouTube it and watch it. It's so good.
I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, do. It's worth it. Yeah. Did I answer the question? Sorry.
No, not at all. Is there anyone else besides Copperfield that you
like
put on
fried
that?
potatoes? Is that what you're looking for? Oh, Copperfield, Henning, early on Henning, but then I like later on I think about an act that blew my mind. And keep in mind, a lot like the stage stuff, I didn't do mentalism when I first saw this, and I saw Falkenstein and Willard do their two-way mental telepathy act. Mm-hmm. And it was at a magic convention, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting by myself. I'm surrounded by other magicians, but I wasn't sitting with anyone. And for those who don't know, she stands on stage, she's blindfolded, and Glenn Falkenstein walks out into the audience and gets objects from people.
Yeah.
And he says, "What am I holding?" And she says, "You're holding a comb, you're holding keys." And then she tells the serial number on a bill. She tells what kind of credit card it. And I know how it's done now, but at the time I had no clue. So I'm sitting there and I'm literally like this. And I'm like looking around to see if is anybody else just soiling themselves right now, or is it just me? I was like literally like, I have no idea. This is frying me. So now they actually sold the manuscript for it, like notes on how to do it. But
I have it.
it's yeah. And of course, now that I know what I know, there are acts who do that much better than even they did. But
it's a great act, regardless who's doing it. It's amazing.
It is crazy. Like if you're a layman and you don't know how it's nuts. But I remember that moment of, I love that because I don't get that very often. But I remember that moment of just absolute astonishment. So they were kind of big. Mount Rushmore. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. We'll take it as that. So just jumping off what you said, what is the most amazing thing you saw as a kid to most amazing thing you've seen now?
Yeah. As a kid, we're back to Henning. I believe it was the Tonight Show that he came on, and he did a coins across. 4 coins, hand to hand.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't know how it was done. And it was just, again, a beautiful piece of, just very magical. Just like, how on earth are those coins traveling? So that one stands out to me. Keep in mind, I'm a close-up guy. Mm-hmm. So one of the greatest things that I've seen recently, Eric Chen, his close-up act is just beautiful. And again, if you haven't seen it, YouTube, find it. But it's him sitting at a table, and he's got this stretch of ribbon across the center of the table, and as things pass from side to side, they change. Like a card might change color, or I'm not even going to tell you too much about it. It is just a wonderfully constructed close-up act.
I'll try to link it in the description if I can find it.
Yeah, and it's Chen. I think it's Chein. Anyway, and Eric, spelled Eric, but it's amazing. Like just well thought out, well done. I think it's the best close-up act I've ever seen.
Okay, jumping on that, what do you think the best large illusion act is?
I don't know a ton about it. I've always liked Metamorphosis as far as illusions. I just love that illusion. And Pendragon's always did. I mean,
oh yeah,
let's face it, Pendragon's
he owns that.
Just
I don't
so
think there's
great.
anyone that can do that better.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if he can still do it as good. But back when he first came out with that, it was, well, of course, Charlotte's not with him anymore. But and then I know Chris Angel had a version that was right there, very similar. But yeah, Metamorphosis, one of my favorites. But stage, so stage illusions, don't have a lot of opinion on it because I don't watch a lot of it. But when I think of stage, like stand up, Dana Daniels, I love his act. You want to talk about somebody's act who is just honed and just polished. It's just well done. Every line, every movement, it's well thought out. So yeah, I love his act. I love Mike Taveney. He's got also some great stand-up stuff. Michael Finney, he's hilarious, and he's
for sure.
He's been around. Matt King.
Oh yeah.
Killer. And I remember Lance Burton. I saw him in Vegas back when he was at. He was at the Hacienda time. This was before he had signed the big contract at was it Monte Carlo?
Yeah.
Anyway, a long time ago. So I think that's right, Hacienda or the Excalibur.
I think so. Yeah.
Well, wherever it was, before he had signed the big contract and moved, I saw his show, and that's another one. I was out in Vegas doing a trade show for a company, and I decided to go see Lance Burton. And you don't want to go see a magic show by yourself because, again, kind of like when I saw Falkenstein and Willard, I'm like, man, that was great, and I couldn't even there was nobody I could go, dude, that was crazy. Like I was by myself. So yeah. So funny side note. I know this is not the place to talk about it, but it's relevant.
Okay.
About Lance Burton. I have a product called the Bullet. And one of the components of that, I had to get injection molded. So I was contacting companies to get this done. And this one company I called, when the gal answered the phone, I told her what I needed to do. And she said, well, you need to talk to our president, Lance Burton.
Wow.
And I said, what? He said, yeah, I talked to our president, Lance Burton. I said, okay. And then while I'm on hold, I'm writing down, this is the one. So anyway, ended up talking to the guy. The guy's name's Lance Burton. It's spelled the same and everything.
That's great.
But yeah, and so if you purchase or own the Bullet, in the credits, you'll see Lance Burton. But it's not that Lance Burton. So anyway, I thought about putting a quote from Lance Burton, but I thought that'd be a little too deceptive. Like, Lance Burton says this.
I mean, hey, that's the business, though. I mean,
that's right.
You got to just you fool him without even doing a trick for him.
I don't know if Lance Burton owns my Bullet, but I always wondered.
I feel like he should at this point.
If he got it, he'd be like, "Why is he thanking me? Like, what?"
I feel like he would have got a message if he would have known about it.
Maybe, you never know.
Lance, if you're watching.
Right.
Oh man. So when you're performing, do you have a persona that you've created, or is it just like an extension of you? How do you go about your performing persona?
I don't have a character really. It's an extension of me. I always thought that it would be like the guys that can do a character, man, that's hard. That is hard because you really have to have some solid acting and theater training, in my opinion, to be able to pull it off, to be able to make it like believable and the audience is on board with it. I think when I think of characters, I think of was it Mr. Misto, the John Carney character, Mr. Misto? Like you don't like. First of all, a great character, but it's believable. Like you don't, for a minute, think that this is just like a high school play performance. it's good. Rudy Kobe has a very distinct
for sure
character that works. For me, I never like. There was a time when I thought about like changing my name to a stage name because I thought Lamanske might be hard to remember, but
it's hard to spell.
It's a little hard to spell for sure. But I figure.
But when you search Lamanske, you're the only thing that pops up.
So there's that.
Yeah.
So it just became an extension of me. Like I've always been kind of funny. I don't want to like pat myself on the back like I'm a funny guy, but I mean that's what I am drawn to is the humor. So it just made sense. And not only that, those are the guys that I like to watch, like Mullica, Bill Malone. Those guys. I always liked that. So you're going to kind of emulate what you like. So yeah.
Which do you think is more important, comedy or skill?
Hands down, comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my opinion. There was I had a I don't want to say an argument, but a kind of a heated discussion with another magician one time. He had indicated that I should make a choice. That I had to decide between doing magic or doing comedy, and it made me mad because I don't have to decide that. But I will say this: if I had to decide between doing magic and fooling people and being amazing and making them laugh, I would choose making them laugh hands down.
Yeah. And
the reason is, with laughter, it's clear that those people are having a good time. If they're laughing, like there are some magic tricks that I do that are so shocking and stunning that it doesn't get a reaction. It doesn't get applause. It doesn't get a gasp. It gets just this silent, kind of like me watching the Augustine and Willard act, like just this stunned silence. It doesn't mean that they're not enjoying it and not reacting, but there's no audible. So if you're working for a company and they can hear the people in the audience laughing hard.
Oh, for sure.
That, not to mention as a performer,
it's instant gratification.
Yes. So I would choose that just because people are going to walk away going, man, that was a good time. But fortunately, I don't have to choose. I don't have to decide, well, it's one or the other. I can do both. And don't get me wrong, I still want my magic to be strong as possible. I want to blow their minds, but I also want them laughing, maybe more than the magic. So, yeah.
All right.
But the real question was skill or laughter. And again, you need to have skill if you're going to be a magician and call yourself. You need to have some skill. But I think you can go a pretty long way without skill. Like, and again, I don't mean this is not a disrespectful thing, but like Eugene Berger was not a technician. Like skill wise, he was not a technician. But there's different kinds of skill. Like he was a master of presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you can go a long way with minimal skill. I think you can, do really well just by being a good performer. And honestly, that's way more important than skill. Way more important. I know a lot of guys that work on all this hard stuff. You need to be able to present it and perform it in an entertaining way, but it depends on what you want to do with it. I know there are guys that are just content with doing tricks for their family, and that's fine. Like that's not a bad thing. But there are also guys who want to, take it and be a performer and, do it on a professional level and make money at it, or, and it's when you get to that level that you need to be good, and not just technically. You need to be able to perform and present and know how to speak on stage and move on stage anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. A few more questions here. What is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to you on stage? Did you recover? Did an audience member ruin anything?
This is a tough question. I honestly can't think of a best thing that's ever happened to me on stage. And I apologize. Like after this is over, I'll probably think of something that happened that comes to mind. And then worst thing to happen on stage. Oh, you know what? I did this again. This is what comes to mind. This is probably not worse, but this is what comes to mind. I did an Upward show for actually my church um, last year, and I was doing ring and gumball machine, and had the gal up there, and I uncover the gumball machine. She puts the quarter in and turns the thing, and another prize came out, not her ring. Because it's supposed to come a bubble, jumps up, and her ring's inside. Mm-hmm. But another one came out, and it was just a random little plastic toy. And I'm like, I don't know. Well, because it was at my church, my wife was in the audience, and I said to the gal, I said, "Do you have another quarter?" And she said, "No." Fortunately, my wife said, "I do," and she brought another quarter up and gave it to her, and her ring came out. When I dug into it later, there's no reason that her ring should have come out the second time, because everything was wrong with this machine. So the fact that her ring, I think I must be because I was in church that it worked out, but it finally came out. But there was this panic moment of, I'm going to have to give you your ring after the show, lady, and I'm going to have to take apart my machine. And so that was not a fun thing. Oh. And so that wasn't something that was her fault. I have had somebody before like name the wrong card when I know that it couldn't have been there. Like the card that they named is not. Oh,
yeah, hate that.
I know that they were lying, but I don't think it was malicious. I don't think they were trying. I think they saw the wrong card or forgot and remembered it wrong. I don't think they were just trying to be a jerk. I don't really have a lot of that as far as like hecklers and people just messing with me.
So you maybe keep your more crowd so in check.
With close up, but with close up, like I've been doing that so long, there is almost nothing that someone can do that's going to fluster me or mess me up. I've just been doing it too long. There's just nothing they can do. I'm going to, every now and then someone will just try to take over, just kind of being a jerk. But with close up, especially roaming, I can just finish my trick and move on. So, yeah.
All right. Who's your least favorite performer? No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Well,
when you started,
can I say Tom Burgoon? I'm just kidding. Yeah. he's for those who don't know, he's a very good friend.
I'll ask him the same question. There you go. We'll see what happens.
Me, I'm going to be so peeved. Yeah.
So when you started in magic to this current day, do you think the average magician is more skilled now, or did we get more like lazy using gimmicks?
More skilled, and I think using gimmicks doesn't make you lazy. I'm going to mention something I mentioned. The Bullet is a product that I have, and it is for.
You can get it on his website.
Or you can get it on my site. It's for scoring cards, so you can do a perfect Mercury fold. I know that there was some chatter. I don't go on Magic Cafe just because there's a bunch of haters, so I don't go on there very often. But there was some hate, like you need to learn a Mercury fold the hard way, because one of the things this scoring does is not only does it make the fold perfect every time, but the fold is much easier. So again, there was some negativity that, well, I learned it. I had to, sit in front of a TV and Mercury fold, 7,000 cards or whatever. Well, I learned it that way too. So that's how I learned it. But when I discovered the scoring thing, it made it easier. I'm like, oh, this is great.
You want to work smarter, not harder.
Well, that's the thing. So you ask about lazy, and it's like, I don't think it's lazy when you're being smart. Like these guys that say, learn it this other way. It's like, okay, then don't use an expanded shell. Don't use a double facer. Don't use an invisible deck. There's nothing wrong with that. So the fact that it made it easier, great. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So, yeah, I don't think anybody's lazy. And I think for sure the skill level now, when you look at, some of the crazy, all you got to do is like search on YouTube and look at some of the fancy things people are doing. I will say that right now we're in a time of eye candy, like all visual stuff. Like I'm holding a candy bar and now it's a truck, whatever. Like
Well, cardistry is taken off like crazy.
And then cardistry and all that stuff. So I think all that, the eye candy stuff is bigger right now. But there's some crazy skilled people out there. So I'd say definitely now people are more skilled for sure.
So let's get into the advice portion of this. For a starting, fresh, brand new magician that has no idea what they're doing, what would you recommend them to do to learn more, to do more?
That has no idea what they're doing. That's me right now. Yeah, I mean, the first thing is you need to be good. And I touched on this earlier, but honestly, presentation and your performance ability is paramount. It's like more important than the actual skill. You need to be able to entertain. It needs to be entertaining. So it's hard for me because I can't tell you what style to, but you need to be engaging and entertaining. And if that's not natural for you, like some guys, it's just natural. They're just naturally gifted that they can just, like when they talk and are presenting, you're listening, you're engaged, and less so with some other people. So if that's a weakness, you need to, figure out a way to make that, to polish that up. And it really comes through performing, really. But, somebody young starting out. So be good. I know that's like, how do you become successful? Succeed. I mean, you definitely need to be good, but also don't be afraid to jump in. I think for me, again, with deciding to leave my day job to go to do magic, that was scary, but it wasn't that bad. And fortunately, it's because, and again, I'm going to sound like egotistical here, but fortunately, I'm good enough that it worked. Like I'm decent at what I do, so I was able to get work. So be good, and then don't be afraid. Make the move. Whatever it is. If you're thinking, well, I should go get a restaurant, do magic at a restaurant, well, go do it. Don't drag your feet. Go do it.
So let's say, I mean, normally the beginning kid, they're not going to have that much money to start off. So let's say you got $100 and you want to perform an act within a month. What do you do?
Again, tricky question because it depends on what you want to do. Like if you're wanting to do stage illusions,
$100 won't get you very far.
I don't have advice for that. Like $100 is not going to go very far. But I started doing close up, and I still do a fair amount of close up because I really love it. But I would say $100, get yourself some decks of cards, Sharpies, thumb tip,
the bullet.
Deck. What's that?
The bullet.
That's right, of course. You got $100. You need to go to toddstrickstore.com and just pick and choose. No, in all seriousness, I mean, you can go pretty far with those, but those again are close-up things. Doesn't really help you to do a stand-up show. And I will tell you that, like for me, I started with close-up, but I quickly realized because people would contact me and say, "Hey, we want you to come to our event, but we have, 50 people." Or we have 300 people or whatever. And I realized what they needed was me to stand in front of the group as opposed to me roaming. And oftentimes, even now, but even back then, I would do both. I would do some roaming at the beginning, and then I would do a stand-up show like after dinner. But I realized early on that I needed to have a show, especially like if you go into somebody's home, you need to have a show that works so people can just sit and be comfortable and watch you do a show. And early on, all I had was close-up stuff, so people far away would be able to see it. So I just started by adapting close-up magic to make it play bigger. And that's kind of what you have to do if you're a close-up guy or girl. You would just change it to make it play a little bit bigger. Like Invisible Deck, I know I've brought that up several times, but I love the Invisible Deck. The effect is great. You can make that play for a big group. Like it will play for a large room. So that's a great example of one that you can do close up that also plays big. So yeah.
Is there any certain books that you would recommend?
I don't read a lot of magic books anymore, but early on, influential books for me were Henry Hayes' Amateur Magician's Handbook, the George Schindler, any of the George Schindler books, the Presto Magic, Magic for a Beginner, Magic at the Dinner Table. There was a few different ones. Bill Tarr, Now You See It. Now You See It, Now You Don't, I think is what it is. And then there's a second version of that, the Bill Tarr books. The Fitzky trilogy, I started trying to read it, and it's so dry and hard to read. But there's the Trick Brain, Magic by Misdirection, and I forget what the other one is. But those are all good. Oh, Tommy Wonder's books.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh! If you can only get one set of books, Tommy Wonder's books are fantastic because it just covers a lot of stuff. His write-up on misdirection is the best written information on misdirection that I've seen anywhere. Gary Kurtz has some really good stuff called Leading with Your Head that's also really good on misdirection. But the Tommy Wonder books, they're not cheap. There's 2 books, but so much great material in there. And he was a genius. What a loss when we lost him. What a loss. Anyway, those books I recommend.
All right. We're getting close to the end here.
Probably Tarbell, which I don't know.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I know Tarbell. And then the Roberto Giobbi, his Card College stuff is also good. I don't have any of that, but I know that they're really good stuff. So,
yeah, all good books. So we're going to get into this this final segment. I'm going to ask you a bunch of lightning quick questions to get to know you better as a human being. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite cereal?
This is so boring. Rice Chex.
Oh, okay. Next, favorite band?
Queen.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Okay. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'll go with Apple. Sorry, what?
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Sure.
What's your pet peeve in magic?
Ooh. I don't have one, but I mean, what came to mind is Matrix. I've never liked that trick. Covering the coins with the cards.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked it. I know there's some great versions, so that's not really a pet peeve, but that's what came to mind. It's like,
understandable. If you got a tattoo right this moment, what would it be?
A mermaid on a motorcycle, lower back. I'm kidding. I don't have any ink. It would probably be something magic related, like a force card or something. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great. Let's talk about something though, real quick. You have a website. You have a project that's slowly being released. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, my website, like magic website for like people to hire me to perform, is magicdude.com. But yeah, I do have like a product website, which I think we mentioned earlier.
It's on the screen right now.
Okay, toddstrickstore.com. Yeah. That's my product site. I am just getting ready to release a series. I don't know how many episodes they're going to be. I hesitate to call it episodes, but it's going to be called Todd's Tiptorial. And it's just tricks, tips, and ideas for working magicians. So I know I've got a few subjects that I want to talk about. I've already got one of them shot and edited and ready to go, and I'm going to send it out. But it's going to be something to where I'll just send it out to people that are to magicians that are on my email list. So if anybody is interested in getting that, and it's free, it's just like this first one that I've done, I know is probably, I'm guessing it's probably like 17 minutes long, but it's this first one that I'm sending out, it talks about the invisible deck and some tips and
And
ideas.
this is free.
That.
If they
It's free.
email you.
Yeah, it's free. It's free.
All
In fact,
there's no reason not to email Todd@magicdude.com. That
totally.
is Todd@magicdude.com.
Totally. And I promise I'm not going to like bombard. Like, I have some magic emails that I get like every day. I'm not going to bombard people with a bunch of emails. I don't really know how often I'm going to send out this Todd's Tiptorial. I'm thinking it might be once a month. I don't know yet, but it's something that is in the works right now. But besides that, then I've got a bunch of products on my site. A couple of them are new, and I've got some new products that are in the pipeline that'll be added as we go. So yeah.
All right. Well,
and by the way, if they get something or they have any questions about a product on my site, or if they have any questions about anything, like if they saw this and it's like, I would like to know more about whatever, Penn and Teller's, whatever, send me an email. I don't care. I'll reply.
Cool.
I mean, it's a pandemic. What am I going to do? I'm sitting here with nothing to do. So
True that.
If I don't answer, I'm mowing. I think we've already decided I can do that.
All right. Well, I mean, it's been great. I have no idea how long this went, but thanks for agreeing to be interrogated.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
For those listening, we will be dropping these once a week, every Friday. If you have any suggestions or guests that you would like to see, leave them in the comments below. Or if you'd like, contact me for whatever purpose. I'll have my email on here too. theofficialtravesty@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Have a day.
Follow the Official Travesty at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email him at theofficialtravesty@gmail.com.
Like, comment, and subscribe, or else.